Hello, welcome to our first Together podcast. So we've decided that we want to bring you this podcast to talk about real things, relevant things, things that we can, hopefully there'll be, you can take things away from this. There'll be positive things that you can take away. So we'll be discussing something different every time. Some things will be quite serious, some things will be not so serious. We're going to switch it up a little bit, but ultimately we just hope you enjoy it and that you really get something from this. So this week we're going to talk about what is church. Let's get real. So we're getting real about church. What really is church? So I think we ought to just start, guys, with what is church to you? How do you see church?
I love how you both look straight at me. Does that mean I'm going first, yeah?
It certainly does.
Yeah.
Not to get too deep straight away, but it's family.
Yeah.
I'll say that for now.
Are we going for one-word answers then?
Oh,
Yeah, I've gone for
really?
one word answer. Family.
Am I going next?
Yeah,
To me, it's community.
community. That's good. And for me, it's unity.
Ooh.
Unity. Togetherness.
I like it. He's publicising this one.
Together church, togetherness.
But so some people that might be watching this might be thinking, well, what is church? Like, my idea of church, when I didn't grow up in church, so my idea of church was singing hymns, sat on pews with your little hymn book and somebody playing an organ, and the vicar was always dressed in his long robes and things like that. So for us, what is church? Because you can quite clearly see we're in church, and church does not look like that. I was quite surprised when I first went to church that there were a drum kit. It's like, wow, there's a drum kit. You mean you've not got an organ, and people are not wearing, posh Sunday suits and everything like that. So let's just start with basics for people who might be watching and thinking, actually, I've never really been to church. So what does church look and feel like?
I'd say church feels like a place where you can just be yourself and feel like you're at home, so you can relax and but it's lively, and it's just somewhere where you don't have to be really quiet and really serious, but you can have fun.
Yeah.
And also just have a good laugh at the same time. It's your turn this time, Chris.
Well, for me, church is it's exactly what we want it to feel like. And for us here at Together Church, we want it to feel like home.
Yeah.
We want people to feel as though they can come into this place, not just with the agenda of worshipping God, which is ultimately what we need and what we want.
Yeah.
But ultimately that people can come in with no matter what circumstances, no matter what background, no matter what agenda they've come with, no matter what baggage that they turn up with, then they can feel at home, they can feel comfortable, and they can feel in a safe place here in this place, in this church.
I would say, I'd say it's up to date. I don't know. That's
Relevant.
That's the word.
Yeah.
Relevant, authentic, and with the whole hymns and choirs and all that jazz, I'd actually go one step further to say, I actually think the church is creating some of the best music on planet. Actually, I would rather sit and listen to Elevation's new album than sit and listen to top 10 pop songs.
Yeah.
I think that's the level that Christian music and the church has developed to now, the point where they're actually creating music that is better than what's coming out in pop charts.
So we're not saying that other churches are not relevant, because every church will be relevant for somebody.
That's right.
Yeah.
So depending at what stage of life you're in, or even down to what kind of music you like, there'll be some churches that you feel more at home and you feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
But for us, we want to be relevant to, especially to young people, because without young people coming forward, then the church will not keep moving forward.
Yeah.
There will end up being no church. So for us here, we just want to be relevant for society today, not conforming to society, but just being relevant so that people can feel like, yeah, this feels kind of normal. It's not a strange atmosphere. It don't make them feel uncomfortable, but that they feel at home and feel welcome.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
One of the things that we don't want to do is we don't want to judge people, no matter for their background or their creed or their colour or wherever. We want this place really to feel where people are united together.
Yeah.
Where it don't matter how you come dressed, whether you come in your shorts, t-shirts, or whether you come in a three-piece suit or whatever.
What about your pyjamas?
If you want to come in your pyjamas, you'll come in. But there's going to be no judgment from us guys anyway, from this church, as to how you turn up. Like you said, different people are on different journeys. Different churches are relevant for different people, and again, we may not suit the older generation, but no discrimination because of the type of music that we play. But we don't want anybody to feel as though they are being discriminated against, because again, we want everybody to feel welcome and feel at home here at Together Church.
Yeah.
Do you think that you might find, so you might go, people who not necessarily go to church, so they might look at our church and some people might be thinking, oh yeah, actually that's not what I expected church to be, and I feel like I could go there, but there's other places that they couldn't. Do you think it's a good idea to maybe visit a few different churches and see what styles, because every church is so different.
Yeah.
Even if we kind of along the same lines, there can be other churches that are very similar, but there's always something that's different. And
That's it, yeah.
so I think it's good that if you've not been to church, then just try a couple of churches. Just try them, because it might be that actually you really connect with God in that place where
That's
they
it,
still use an organ and they still use hymns, and that is absolutely amazing. If you connect with God, that is the main reason for me that that's the church for you. So even though we don't do that, we're not saying that that's not relevant for some people, because it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So moving on a little bit deeper then. So we've already discussed that, church is not what we expect it to be. You can see from how we're sat here now that, we're not what you would expect if you thought about church, what most people thought about as church. So we have not got a dog collar on, or we've not got a suit on.
I think you'd suit a dog collar.
Who are you, mum?
No, you.
Well, I do get the occasional post by Reverend Chris.
Start calling it that. Rev.
He
Don't
loves,
rev
he
over
loves it as well.
So we've already discussed that church is different, but so we've discussed kind of like what is church, how does it feel a little bit, but what is church? What is the relevant? Why do we have church? What is the whole point of church?
Well, for me, the whole point of church is, again, that we come together to worship God. And the word church comes from a Greek word called ecclesia, which, again, we get the book of Ecclesiastes, which means to come together. It means not only do we have to come together to meet in as churches, but we can meet together in as homes. As long as we are meeting together, as long as we are building each other up and encouraging each other and doing what God's called us to do, to be able to fulfill the mission, like Matthew 28 says, to fulfill the Great Commission, then that is what church for me is. It's about meeting together, it's about being congregation, it's about being a family and a body of people with the same mindset, with the same agenda, to come to worship God, to come to be and serve the people, to serve God, and to serve each other as family.
Yeah,
that's good. I'd say, like I said, it's community, but I also think it's a place where you worship, where you can connect with God, even though you can connect in other places, but I feel like this is, that this is a place where you totally can, all distractions are gone, And I feel like it's a place where you get encouraged, where you get inspired,
Yeah.
Yeah.
just so then you know that. And I always think you feel better from coming to church,
Yeah.
and that you feel like, yeah, I can do that because I've spoke to my church family, or been with my church family, but also I've been inspired by what's been said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting one is when certain people that we know that's in the family say, I don't need to go to church because I can be with God when I'm at home. You can, but there's something greater and far more significant about gathering with God's people and worshipping together and praying together and learning together
Yeah.
than there is when you're on your own.
Yeah.
I just feel like
And the Bible tells us that, doesn't it? That we should
yeah,
not neglect meeting
Yeah, that's
together.
it.
yeah,
That it's important that we meet together. And I think that's where we kind of switch from what we think church is. So we think that church is these buildings and that it's all about what's in the building. And actually it's not. You know, you've all touched on when you've said it's about the people, isn't it?
to people, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
about the people, and God never intended for the church to just be about the building. It's
That's it,
about,
yeah.
the church is the people.
Yeah.
So we are the church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, we can be the church when we're outside, but like I think Hannah said, you know, we come and we get built up and we get encouraged, and that's why we need to be together in we just use buildings and as
Yeah.
known as church. That's why we meet together.
Well, if you read in, especially in the New Testament, after the day of Pentecost in Acts chapter 2, it said that they met in each other's houses. They weren't a church building; they met in each other's houses.
Yeah.
Romans chapter 16, verse 5, it says, "Greet the church that is in their house," which again, it's about us meeting together as a body of believers, but also the main thing is keeping God as the head.
Yeah.
Because God is the head of the church, and first and foremost, that's what we've got to proclaim, that He is the head of everything that we do. He's the head of the church, is the head of not just the church, but even in our family times, in our home times, He's
Yeah.
got to be the head of our houses
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So, speaking about God being the head, so some people, obviously, if you go to church straight away, we get that. If we're not in church, we can get that. You know, like a company needs a manager, they need an executive,
Yeah.
and a family needs. You know, they might say, well, they're the head of the household. But when we talk about God being the head, we don't just mean that He's the chief exec, that He's the
That's
one
it,
at the
yeah.
top, do we? You know, in the Bible it tells us that we are the body.
Yeah.
We are the body, and that He is the head. And so it's more than just buildings. It's more than just believing in God and knowing that He's ultimately in charge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are all a part of that. We're connected to Him, and we're all a part of that body.
Yeah.
See, the thing is about the body, is obviously if we're moving on to that subject. It says in Corinthians that we are a body, and we've all got individual parts to play. Where it says there's no point everybody being an eye, and there's no sense of smell, or there's no point everybody being an ear when there's no legs, or what. That's
Yeah.
just as
Yeah.
an example. You know what I mean? But God's gifted each and every one of us with different talents, different giftings,
Yeah.
and that is what we as a body, as the church, as the body of Christ, is. We've all got different giftings, but we're all on it. We're all
Yeah.
on the mission. We're all on the journey for the same
Yeah.
reason. Do you know what I mean? It's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the good thing to point out there is that if you don't come to church, it's not full. That body's not complete. It's still not complete. So there's always room for you. There's always space, and
Yeah.
there's a specific gift, and the person that you are, that God created you to be, fits perfectly within that body
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Finding that place is an whole other story, but just connecting in church, there's a place for you.
That's it,
There's
yeah.
always a place, and you might think, well, that runs like clockwork and people are doing all these things, but we need you. We
Yeah.
need you to be there, and
Yeah.
God's planned for you to be a part of that. So it's about being together and working together
That's
as
it,
that
yeah.
body.
Yeah.
Does anybody want to say anything else about?
I'd say that you said that like everybody's got like a gift, and I think some people like who don't go to church think, oh, I don't really have anything what I could give or what I can do, or like nothing special about me. But I feel like when you come into church, you find that gifting.
That's it,
You
yeah.
find
Yeah.
something where you think, you know what, yeah, I'm good at that.
Yeah.
And you do think, yeah, I'm not just that person who sat at home thinking, oh, I'm nothing me. I think you feel like you are something.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it encourages you more.
Thing is, there's always, sometimes I think people think, I've got to be up on a platform, I've got to be part of the worship team, or I've got to be leading, or I've got to be on the pastoral team, or I've got to be doing this, that, and other. It's not about that. It's, yeah, God calls you and develops you to be in those roles,
Yeah.
but that's just as important as serving the teas and coffees.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just as
Yeah.
important as putting the chairs out. It's just as important welcoming people. Do you know what I mean? It's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
they're just as important. It's okay that the pastor or the teacher or whoever's leading church saying all that stuff, but if they're not willing to do it themselves, then
Yeah.
we've got to lead by example as leaders as well. We've got to lead by example. So we've got to be able to put the chairs out. We've got to be able to clean the toilets. We've got to be able to
Yeah.
wash the pots afterwards. Do you know what I mean? It's but we've all got a part to play, and we're like Anna's just said. I think God highlights the giftings or the talents that you've got as you develop in church, where you can serve, where you can fulfil the ministry that God's called you. And sometimes it's not necessarily in church. You might be just part of the congregation, but you may get that development. that development for your gifting, speaking to people outside church.
Yeah.
Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's not everything's not got to be done inside these four walls. It may be on the streets. It may be serving on the high street. It may be giving sandwiches out to the homeless or wherever. Each and every one of us have got a gifting and a talent that we can all use in some way or another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good, yeah. So, I think it's about realising that church is more than just a building. So it's not just a building. It's, we meet in the building, but it's about the people,
Yeah.
and the people are the church.
Yeah.
So we are the church. So we can do church anywhere. So if we didn't have this building, we could do it in our living rooms. We could
Yeah.
do it. We've seen a lot of outdoor church going off in
Yeah.
the last 2 years with COVID, haven't we? So church can be done absolutely anywhere.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's about coming together and churches being built up and learning more about who Jesus is, because we're called as the church to be more like Jesus.
Yeah.
And it's about learning to be more like him together,
That's
and
it,
then
yeah.
going out there and
Yeah.
being the church.
Yeah.
And so we just wanted to discuss this today. We might go off on a bit of a tangent sometimes, but we just wanted to discuss this today to let people know that, church, it's not boring either. Church is not
Certainly isn't.
boring.
There's plenty
And-
always going off.
Yeah.
Yeah, church is relevant.
Yeah.
And we just want to keep topics that are relevant to what's happening in our lives today.
Yeah.
Does anybody want to say anything else about church?
I think one thing I'd say, that we don't need the walls, which we don't, but one thing I do feel strongly about, which I've heard recently, which, there's not been any context given, but the whole idea of church without walls, I believe that can exist. I believe that the church needs the walls and needs the privacy, because, for example, even just your leaders, they need private space to deal with their issues. Your congregation need private space to deal with their issues. We don't want to be... It's great to see miracles happen, and if we're doing that in community, that's fine. But somebody that's dealing with serious anxiety don't want to be publicly displaying their issues. Do you get what I mean? And I believe the walls are actually key in dealing with dirty laundry or however you want to put it. It's about coming into the walls, dealing with what you need to deal with, building your team up, getting everybody ready, then going out onto the streets, getting rid of the walls to then connect with community and to build with other people.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I think that we do need the walls, but I think it's when sometimes the church in general has been too inwardly focused.
Yeah.
And all we've thought about is how do we get people in and how do people come into this place, when actually, like we've already said, it's about, if you already know God, then you come in to learn more about him and learn more about where you fit in that body that we've talked about.
Yeah.
And then it's about actually taking what you've learned and going out there and being Jesus to people.
Yeah.
So I think we need both. I think both are really important, because we need to come and, like you say, there's some things that we need to do behind closed doors, and we need to do that together sometimes. Sometimes that's alone, but we also need to make sure that we are doing the church without walls part. So we need to make sure that we're not, well, this is the only time I do church, when I'm in this building.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that actually I am part of the church.
That's right,
wherever I am the church wherever I go. So
A way of putting it for other people, just so they get more of a thing of what I mean, it's like when say there's a storm, you've got to take them out of the storm, bring them in, get them safe, get them prepared, get them ready to face the storm again. You can't deal with them in the storm. You've got to take them out of that situation, sort the situation out with them first. Then, when you're ready as a group, or that person's ready, they can then tackle it again. And it's the development and preparing yourself for what's going off out there is easier when you bring them out of what's going off out there, then ready to go back into what's going off. If that helps make more of a sense of it.
yeah, I think because when some people talk about church without walls, I think they mean the evangelizing stuff that we do.
Yeah.
And that's when you do connect with people and you meet people.
Yeah.
People that are already in church, we need to come into those walls, get trained, get equipped, and then go out there.
Yeah.
And that's when we meet those people that are in the storms of life, that are going through things, and that's when we can bring them in.
Yeah.
And I think it's more about the not forgetting that we need to go out there to get them.
Yeah.
So we need to come out of our walls and go and get them and bring them into this safety and security, and help them with the problems. I think it's making sure that we're doing both of those things.
Yeah.
That's good.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Did you want to say something?
I'm just intrigued with what you were saying, that's all. It's, but I think ultimately we're part of a team.
Yeah.
We are a team. Our class is not, just because myself and Rachel pastor the church, that doesn't exclude us from being part of the team.
Yeah.
And I think even though we call ourselves family, which we are family, we are the family.
Yeah.
And even though we may be part of the same family, as in like through like myself, biologically, that's the word I'm looking for. We've got to insist that we develop team.
Yeah.
We've got to develop a team attitude as well.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of what we do in church reflects on our attitudes as well.
Yeah.
And we've got to give a positive attitude. And sometimes, even though we don't feel like it, and we do come into church sometimes thinking, why should I bother?
Yeah.
Jesus could have turned around and said, well, I can't be bothered to go across today. I can't be bothered. I'm just going to go home. I'm going to go to my dad. I'm not going to bother. I'm not going to bother dying. I might do it a bit later on, but he didn't. He had the right attitude, because he knew we'd got a mission to fulfill, and that is the same with us, as not just as the local church, but as part of the body of the church.
Yeah. We've
got a mission to fill, and we've got to work as a team. We've got to work as family, and just let me. There were a coach that once said, a basketball coach called John Wooden, and he once said, individuals win trophies, but teams win championships.
Yeah.
And I love that. because individually we can fulfill different parts of our lives. We can run a separate race on one thing or another.
Yeah.
But then sometimes we get burnt out as well.
Yeah.
We get burnt out because we get tired, because we're trying to do it on our own. We're trying to strive on our own. But together we win championships.
Yeah.
Together we work as a team. Together we do things. We win together. We lose together. And ultimately we move forwards together. And I love that.
Yeah.
That the church is one massive team.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what denomination you come from. It doesn't matter what sphere you come from. Ultimately, we are a team as the body of the church. And sometimes it just disheartens me when other churches tend to go off on their own, or they fall out with another church, and biblically that's not what we're called to do.
Yeah.
And if we do fall out with one another, then we've got to quickly reconcile that, because that's when it says that when one part of the body hurts, the whole part of the body hurts.
Yeah.
And when one is rejoicing, then we all rejoice. But we do that as family, and we do that as team.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, just a couple of things. First one, just a bit more clarity to what I was saying as well. Like when Jesus walked on water, and Peter did it as well. Sorry, I keep tapping on table. Peter did it as well. The other disciples didn't want to do it. So, like with that, there will be certain people that will quite happily deal with the problems out there and just get it done. And they'll be like Peter, and they'll step out on water and they'll do it. Some of them will want that secret place, they want that private place.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that those that want to deal with it in public can't, by all means do it. It's just some people will shy away from, do you know what, I'm not really interested in God then, because I'd actually prefer to have a private conversation. Do you get what I mean? Not everybody's going to be like Peter and jump out a boat and be like, yeah, I'm going to do it. Some
think
folk
some
will
of
sit
that-
back and think, you know what, this is not for me, not today.
I think some of that is in the way that we do that. So is in the way that we bring Jesus to people. So
Yeah.
for some people, I've noticed recently that we've seen twice a group of young guys in the town centre speaking with a microphone,
Yeah.
and they've been doing music and stuff. And part of that is, I think, that is really good. That is really good.
Yeah.
But also, the first time we saw him, I think some people are only getting part of the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when, depending on how we're bringing Jesus across,
Yeah.
people can get the wrong perception.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so we've got to be very careful in how we do it, in how we bring Jesus to people. We
Yeah.
saw him a second time, and they'd been, I don't know if they'd still done the same thing, but they were actually speaking to individual people
Yeah.
then,
Yeah.
which,
That's different.
yeah, he's
Yeah.
like, that's really good, because somebody can have a conversation with
Yeah.
you then.
And questions can be asked then.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and you can explain what you're trying to say, because we know when we've been in church for 20 years, we've sat under the word and we've read the Bible, we know what they're talking about, or even if
Yeah.
it's fairly new to us or a bit more complex, we can get the gist of what's
Yeah.
happening. Whereas people that have never read the Bible before
Yeah.
have not got a clue what you're really saying.
Yeah.
We know what we're really saying, but sometimes it can come across in a bit of a wrong way, and I think that's where we really need to look at the way that we bring Jesus
Yeah.
to people.
Yeah, and back to what you were saying, I think the problem is society's got to the point it's out for it. The thing now is, what can I achieve? Like when just looking at football, like the battle is always Ronaldo, Messi. It's not Man U, PSG. It's Ronaldo, Messi. If Manchester United played Paris Saint-Germain, the debate would be, who's going to win, Ronaldo or Messi? They forget about the other 10 players
right.
on the
Yeah.
pitch, and they think about the two. And I think that, like, that's slipped into the church as well. And I think maybe in a sense of just people, and they think, right, well, what can I get out of this? But then, like, even just talking about one church can be like, right, well, we're out here for us. We want to fill our seats. We want to do our vision. We want to do that. And I think the standout thing recently and the shift you can see since lockdown. It's like with Paul Benji the other day when we went to open space leadership thing, and Paul said, it's not that I don't want my church to achieve anything, it's that I have a heart for your church to
right.
achieve something
Yeah.
as well. And I think that is, it's good to see the shift in church coming now. And it's not, what can we achieve? It's actually, you know what, it's good to see that they're achieving something, and I'm enjoying that. And it was great to see that the other day when Paul said it.
Yeah, I think we can get disheartened when we don't see things, we don't see growth, or we don't see things going the way that we want it to in church.
Yeah,
But I think that is and it is difficult, it is very difficult, but I think that is the key thing, that we've got to all remember that we're all in this together, we're all part of the same body.
yeah,
And if we all do our bit, like we should do all the time, then
Yeah.
there'll be times when we help somebody else and they might see growth and we might not. But then
Right,
yeah,
they might, if we're all just keep going and keep doing what we should be doing, then there might be a time when another church does something that helps us and that we see growth.
yeah,
And so you don't know who you're affecting and who you're introducing to Jesus sometimes.
yeah,
And the ultimate goal we've got to remember is that as long as people connect with God, it doesn't really matter who they go
Yeah.
to church,
Yeah,
where they go to
definitely.
church.
Yeah.
yeah,
And it is difficult, especially as teams and as leaders, when you work so hard and you put so much into it.
yeah,
If you see people that you've connected with and then they go to another church, but the main thing that we have to remember is, well, the connecting
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
God, and if
Definitely.
they're connecting and they're growing and they're flourishing, then that's great, and that's what we've all, and it's hard, it is hard,
yeah,
and we know that, but yeah, that was one thing that stuck out to me as well from that.
yeah.
See, one of the things, slightly just touching on that, is to me, I want to see this church full. My heart's desire is to see this place full with people just loving and worshipping and praising God. And but if that means that I can lead someone to Christ, or we can have that conversation, and say, for example, they don't live in this area, I would be glad and I would be happy to send them to a church
Yeah,
where I know that they are going to get looked after, where
Yeah.
I know that they are going to be able to grow and fulfill their calling that God's called them to.
yeah,
But even though we've still got to look after his own congregation or people or family or whatever you want to call them, it doesn't really bother me. And sometimes we can get a bit disheartened when we see we've only like got 10, 15 people in the building.
yeah,
But if that person or that you've had that conversation with doesn't come to your church but goes to another church,
Yeah.
then we've got to celebrate that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Because ultimately they're in church.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ultimately they're doing what God's, what the Great Commission is all about.
yeah,
We want to see this place full, but I'd rather see souls saved and someone go to another church than they'll come here. If that means that they're going to get looked after and that they're going to grow in what God's called them to do.
Yeah.
But the last thing I want is to have a conversation with someone and they're not bother going anywhere. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they just fall away from church altogether.
Well, I mean, I think that's the whole aim with the Out Loud project and the Out Loud tour. Like, yeah, we put an event on here for our community, but then we go to other communities to put on events there. And the aim is not to go to impress for them to come and join us.
Yeah.
The aim is to show them that Jesus can work through anybody.
Yeah.
You know, the stories that we bring, the testimonies that
Yeah.
come, the messages that happen, it's all to encourage people to say, come and join this church. Like when we go to Denver's, it's to bless his church and any guests that they bring along, so that then they stop at Denver's church. It's
Yeah.
not so that they could end up coming and travelling
That's
to
right,
us.
yeah.
It's so that they stop there. And that, like, I think that needs to be the heart of the church instead of just the odd organisation here and
Yeah.
there. That, like with the Out Loud project, that's the entire aim. That needs to be in with church as well,
Yeah.
not just with the project that you're doing as well.
Yeah.
And I think that is ultimately, I think I can already see the shift in certain leadership things already, but I think that the more it's talked about and the more that people are not scared to voice opinion like we are now, I think it can only get better.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think it's really important that we need to first and foremost look after what we've got and what we've been given.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if we've got something that we can share with somebody else, because somebody else will have something that they can share with us that we've not got
That's
yet.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so and that would really bless us and really help us. And so, yeah, we're busy and we're doing stuff in our own church, but we also want to bless and help others to do the same and
Yeah.
to be all that they
That's
can
right,
be.
yeah.
And I think that's really important, that it's like I love going to, like when we've gone to Yeadon and gone to Denver's church, and we do, I'm just so gutted that the last Out Loud got cancelled.
Oh,
So
no.
we've got lots of leaders like, yeah, we're going to bring loads of youth. But it's coming back, it's coming
Yay.
back.
And Hannah will be there for this
Yes.
one. She will actually be involved with the
Yes.
next one.
Yeah, that's what we want. But it's just knowing that actually young people then, even if they connect through us initially, that we know they're going to get looked after,
Yeah.
and we
Yeah.
know that that they'll grow, and
Yeah.
that's just by doing one thing and one event, we can bless that church so
That's it.
much,
Yeah.
because they might see loads of young people then decide that actually I'm going to come along more often,
Yeah.
and it's just helping each other like that on that journey.
Yeah.
That's good.
Any other comments? We could just go on forever and ever.
One of the things that obviously regarding, it's just an offset regarding what we're doing about churches, is we've got to encourage these guys and as young people. We have Fusion Youth on a Friday.
Yay!
7 o'clock, well 8:30, just to put it out there. But again, being part of church, it's for all ages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not just for us older guys, or it's not just for really older people. It's from toddlers, from babies to toddlers to whoever,
Yeah.
right through all ages. And one of the things that our logo is for people to belong, to believe, and to become.
Yeah.
And being part of the youth, we want people to come in. We want the youth to know who we are, get a feel for the building, get a feel for who we are as a church.
Yeah.
And ultimately, we want to develop these people.
Yeah,
We want them to have that Christ-like experience.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Yeah.
So, and we want these young people to experience Jesus for who he really is.
Yeah.
And again, that's a development process. But we've got to pray for these guys, and we've got to pray for the youth team as a whole, that we get it right. And sometimes we will get it wrong, because it's part of life. But
Yeah.
the main thing is that we keep on going, we keep pushing on, and we keep doing what God's called us to do. But I just love that belong, believe, become, because that is our aim. We want people to belong to this place. We want
Yeah.
people to belong to the church, not just this church, but to the church.
Yeah.
We want people to develop, we want people to become, but yet ultimately we want people to give their lives. We want to see salvation. We want to see lives change,
Yeah.
and we want to see people develop to who God has called them to be.
Yeah.
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 One thing I would say on the whole thing, what is church? Church used to be male-led, and it used to be, your leaders used to be 50, 60, 70. You never saw a young male leader. Now we've got young male leaders, but we've got young female leaders,
yeah.
young female pastors, young male pastors. And I think when you say what is church, church is a place where, don't matter how old you are, don't matter how much experience you've got, if you're called by God, then that's it, that's enough. You don't need a qualification, you don't need 50 years under your belt to know that you've got some experience. And I think that's, again, the beauty way what Paul Bender and I kind of doing. Like, I've never seen a church with so many young leaders. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
like with Life Church, they've got loads of young leaders. And I think that's another step that the church needs
Yeah.
to take. And it's that young people are the leaders for now.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
know what's relevant, they know what's authentic. And I think with the generation now, I think that they just, you take it as it comes. And they genuinely don't care. If you don't like me, you don't like me. That's the way that the generation is now. And I think that actually that's the next step for church. And that's why they're going to be the leaders, because they genuinely believe, well, if you don't like what we're doing, that's fine. We're not going to have a debate with you. We're not going to say that you're going to hell. We're not going to give a load of reasons for whatever. They just don't care. And they keep doing what they do consistently. And I think
Yeah.
that is what is going to end up happening. So like with the Out Loud project, it's going to be great to have Lydia join us on tour next time.
Yeah.
It's just another young person. And I think it's powerful stuff to see young people leading young people.
Yeah.
And there's even more power in young people leading older people.
Yeah.
Because the people that think, yeah, I've got loads of experience, I know what I'm talking about, are being led in worship by 18-year-olds.
Yeah.
And it's just proof that the Spirit can move through each and every one of us.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what credentials you've got or what certificates you've got. God will move through whoever He has called.
Yeah.
And, well, just a final word from me, really, is I love that with what you've just said. It's because God qualifies the called.
Yeah,
Yeah.
He doesn't necessarily call the qualified.
yeah,
If God wants you in a position, or He wants you in a certain place, doing a certain job, then He will make sure that He qualifies you
yeah,
for doing that. He will equip you for doing that role.
yeah,
And it doesn't necessarily always get the people with all the degrees and all the qualifications, because sometimes they are not the right people.
yeah,
And as much we can all have the head knowledge, but not be able to live it out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
we all know it up here sometimes, but yet we can't do it. But God will qualify. No matter if you've no qualifications, God will make sure that you're qualified if He wants you in that specific
yeah,
job, doing that specific role.
yeah.
That's me.
Do you want to say anything,
No,
Anna?
all right.
We could genuinely go on. all
Yeah,
day.
we could. But I think that's good when you talk about God not calling the qualified, but He qualifies the called. But that's also where the church is the people,
Yeah,
and we are people, and we're flawed.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
flawed. And the one thing that I just want people who don't go to church to know is, don't judge God by us.
Yeah.
We are supposed to, the whole point of church is that we become more like Jesus.
Yeah.
yeah,
And we're told that that'll not be complete until Jesus comes back for us.
yeah,
So we will make mistakes and we will let people down no matter how hard we try. But always look to Jesus.
Yeah.
Always look to
That's good.
Jesus for
yeah,
who the church should be and how the church really should be. And that's not excusing us, that's not excusing anybody, but yeah, God will call us even if we're not qualified, but we need to step up as well. It's
Exactly.
up to us
Yeah.
to make that decision and step up. And like Jordan says, we can talk about this forever. There's so much stuff that we could have said and could have talked about. I just want to thank you for joining us, for watching this podcast, and we hope that you'll come back again. You know, guys, we don't know everything, but we just hope that we can help some church or some people out there and in some small way. So whatever we know, we just want to pass it on so
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
can pick up on that and just run your race and run with all you've got.
yeah.
So we will be back. We'll be back with, different topics. We'll be back with some different guests. If you do have any things that you think might be relevant for us to talk about, drop them in the comments below. Let us know what you
Yeah.
think. Let
Yeah.
us know what kind of things that you want people to discuss that you'd like to know more about, and then we can try and organise that. But thank you for being with us. Thank you guys for being here, discussing with us.
I've enjoyed it. I've
Yeah,
loved
it's been
it.
great. Yeah.
Apart from this irritating cough that I've got, it's been good.
You've not done bad though. You've not
Thanks.
done bad. Yeah. We'll let him off there. All right. But yeah, thanks for joining us, guys, and we'll see you really soon.